Hare Krishna, good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. These are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is session 20 of our discussion about the meeting in Kurukshetra. And we've discussed how Krishna left Vrindavan and what happened in Mathura, and how Nanda Maharaj left Krishna in Mathura and how that worked out. And yesterday we spoke something about Nanda Maharaj's return to Vrindavan and what happened at that time. So today we're going to have a very little known story from a rare book called Dibyon Mada. It's a Bengali book which speaks about what happened after Krishna left with the gopis and the cowherd boys, and how a messenger was sent by Srimati Radharani to Mathura, and what happened when that messenger met with Krishna in Mathura. It's a very beautiful discussion today. We'll also have some philosophy and different things, but we'll go ahead and say some prayers first. Gora Graganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramschaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Vede Ramayaneschaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adhavante Chamadye Cha Hari Sarvata Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangumlang Gayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shigurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Be Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Padaye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees. So we're starting our session number 20 about the meeting in Kurukshetra, and we're laying the foundation, very important foundation, of what happened before that meeting in Kurukshetra and the events that led up to it. And let's do a little review from our last few sessions. We heard something about how Nanda Maharaj left Krishna in Mathura. Inconceivable. How is it possible? But Krishna told him two things. One is that, Father, the cows, someone has to take care of them, and you can't bring them here because there's not enough space. And you have to return because mother will die and all the Brijbasis will die. And even if you bring mother here, then all the Brijbasis will die, and you can't bring all the cows here. And the other reason Krishna offered was out of concern for the residents of Mathura, headed by Devaki and Vasudeva, who had never gotten any association of Krishna, even though Krishna apparently was their son. And so Nanda Maharaj, how he finally left, and before he left Mathura, he sent a message, Jiva Goswami says in Gopal Champu, to his older brothers and everyone waiting for his arrival, that Krishna's not coming back. And they thought, what is this? This is not a funny joke. And so they were all assembled there when Nanda Maharaj returned to Vrindavan alone. We also heard something from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is very foundational for our later discussions, how Krishna actually returned to Vrindavan with Nanda Maharaj in a separate form, and he expanded, he made expansion forms of Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd boys, and there were two groups, one Nanda Maharaj and one group of cowherd boys who returned with Krishna and one who returned without. And we spoke something yesterday about Nanda Maharaj's arrival in Vrindavan and how the Brijbasis, Nanda Maharaj couldn't even face them. He went and locked himself up, and the Brijbasis decided to kill themselves. And hearing this, Nanda Maharaj came out from the home and told them, no, Krishna loves you, Krishna remembers you, and just see, he sent you all a bunch of presents. And he showed those presents, and we heard something from Sanatana Goswami through the mouth of Uddhava to Krishna, the reaction of the Brijbasis to those gifts and how they were very upset about it, that Krishna wants, he's not going to come back and he's going to send these damn things to us. We don't want these things. We want Krishna. So, to begin with our discussion today, I'd like to read you a little something from a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave on the 1st of May, 1973. Because we want to begin by trying to understand the utility of separation, something we spoke about also in our last session. We want to continue a little further with that. Srila Prabhupada spoke in his lecture. He said Krishna can be felt. Krishna can be present more acutely in separation. Very beautiful point. Krishna can be felt. Krishna can be present more acutely in separation. And again, let's look back at the definition of the word Vipralamba, Sanskrit word, and Jiva Goswami's definition, which he gives in Anucheta 370 of his Priti Sandarbha. He says that Tatra Vipralambo Viprakarshena Lamba Praptir Yashan Satata. That Vipralamba means external separation but internal union. And Prabhupada here, following in our Sampradaya, is saying that Krishna can be more present in separation. That, he says, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, to love Krishna in separation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has written, Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me, quote, everything is vacant without Govinda, without Krishna. That is the highest perfection. And Prabhupada goes on, he says, when we see that everything is nothing and only Krishna consciousness is there, that is the highest. That is the gopis. Therefore the gopis are so exalted, they could not forget Krishna for a single moment. When Krishna was going to the forest with his cows and calves, the gopis at home were disturbed in their minds. Oh, Krishna is walking barefooted. There are so many stones and nails, they'll prick his lotus feet, which are so soft that we think our breasts are hard when Krishna puts his lotus feet on them. It's appropriate to think about today, because today is a day of Gopastami. And we're going today, after a little later in the morning, to the Nandi Goshala, the Nandi Sanctuary, and we're going to give some katha there, with a Russian translation, hopefully, about this pastime of Krishna herding the cows. Prabhupada goes on in this lecture, he says, when Krishna is absent physically, he'll be more present within the mind of the devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching is Vipralamba Seva. He's shown this by his practical life. He was searching out Krishna. He was crying. Tears were coming like torrents of rain from his eyes, and he was feeling everything vacant for want of Krishna. This is separation, Vipralamba. And Prabhupada said there are two stages, Sambhog and Vipralamba. When he's present, personally meeting and personally embracing, that is called Sambhog. And when there's separation, that is called Vipralamba. And he says, these are two ways that a devotee can be benefited. So this Vipralamba is a very, very mysterious thing. It's said that, you may know if you go to Vrindavan, if you go all over Braj, the water is very, very salty there. And it's difficult even to find any water that's not salty. According to the local tradition in Braj, there's a very Rasik reason why that water is salty. They say that after Krishna left Vrindavan, all the Brajbasis began to cry in separation from him. And those salty tears of the Brajbasis entered into the ground and made all the water in Braj salty. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Uddhava Sandesh, he speaks about the words of Krishna to Uddhava. Now Krishna's in Mathura, and we heard something from Gopal Champu about the importance of Uddhava and how Krishna externally first, we say externally because Uddhava is the eternal associate of Krishna. But externally, they had a first meeting in Mathura. And Jiva Goswami marks that as very, very significant. So in that meeting, this is now after Nanda Maharaj has returned alone to Vrindavan, and Krishna's there in Mathura, and he's looking for someone to console him. He's looking for someone that he can share his heart with. But Krishna has a very difficult time because there's no one in Mathura who can understand the love of the Brajbasis. There's no one who can understand the love of the gopis. So Krishna is all alone. And Krishna tells Uddhava, he begins to pour out his heart to his friend Uddhava in hopes that maybe Uddhava can rise up and understand something about the love of the Brajbasis. Krishna tells him, Madvislesha jvalan apatali jalaya jarjarangaha sarve tasmin nidana padavim sakino pyasrashrishan gopi nretravali vigalitayar buribir bashpavaram puraistesham yadi niravadir nabhisheko tarishyat. He says that, Uddhava, you don't know the situation in Vrindavan right now. Madvislesha jvalana. There's this great jvalana, there's a great forest fire of separation. And he said that if it wasn't for the Gopi Netravali Vigalitayar, the flood of tears coming from the gopis' eyes, all the forests of Vrindavan would have been burned to ashes by now in the great fire of separation from me. It was only because the gopis' tears were pouring and pouring down that those trees in Vrindavan managed to survive. He says that all the residents of Vrindavan are walking on the pathway that leads to death. This is a very sober topic. It's a very heartfelt thing. How do we understand this separation? Jiva Goswami in Anucheta 100 of his Priti Sandarbha, he gives some explanation. He says, Tesham api yat svabhavatinaiva chagantukad anya gyanat naso pritir vyabhicharati pratyuttatat eva tiraskaroti. He says, you should understand the nature of the love of the cowherd people of Vrindavan. It's the crest jewel of all kinds of love. And he says the nature of that love, when there's some opposition to that love, when there's some obstacles, the love the Brijbasis has doesn't waver, doesn't falter. When a girl has some love for a boy, but then someone tells her, you're trying to find your boyfriend, but I saw him at the house of this other young girl. Then maybe her love will waver. Maybe she'll feel, oh, this guy is being such a rascal. Could you sit over there? Yes. Maybe, who knows what he's doing? That love may waver. But Jiva Goswami says the nature of the love of the Brijbasis, when there's some obstacles, that love defeats all the opposition. And when the obstacles arise, the love increases. He says that their love, it's just like the love that the hedonists or the sense enjoyers feel for material sense objects. It's always increasing. So in the same way, the love of the Brijbasis is there. He says a similar thing in Anucheta 93 of Paramatma Sandarbha. Yena hi dvashena pratipada promilat sanjananda vichitri samitirikta bhakti rasa marustala brahma kaivalya padana rupatvena tadiya bhakti rasa maha pratiyogitaya tatta nyata dushchik kitataya chatotchatim. He says that when there are people who have some hatred, maybe for Krishna, or they have hatred for the devotees, he says that hatred just increases the devotees' love for the Lord. When they see someone coming and saying, why, you Hare Krishna people, why do you love that Krishna? Do you know? We heard that he married 16,000 ladies. How can you love someone like that? No, we feel more love. He's amazing. He has so much, Krishna has so much love for his devotees. He agreed to marry all the queens in Dwarka. It increases the devotees' love. And he says that love the devotees have, it gives an amazing chamatkar, intense transcendental bliss. A bliss that has nothing to do, he says, with the hopeless, parched desert of impersonal so-called liberation. Rupa Goswami in Ujjvala Nilamani, when he defines prema, he says, Sarvata dvangsarahitam satyapi dvangsakarane yad bhava bandhanam yuno. My Guru Maharaj used to quote this quite often. Yad bhava bandhanam yuno saprema parikirtita. That when the relationship between the couple is always there and it can't be destroyed, even when there's so many reasons for destroying it, that's called prema. Even when Radharani hears about Krishna going with some other man, some other woman, it doesn't destroy her love. Even when Krishna leaves the Brijbasis and they're suffering in a terrible forest fire, prema, their suffering is so intense that if it wasn't for the crying of the gopis, all the forests of Vrindavan would have been burned to ashes. That's prema. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a similar explanation in his book, Prema Samput. Loka dvayat swajanata parata swat... Loka dvayat swajanata parata swatova prana priyadapi sumeru samaya disyu kleshastad apyati bali sahasa vichitya premaiva tan hariribhan eva pushtim eti. He says, even if there are great sufferings which are as huge as, he says, Api Sumeru Sama, I mean, it equal to Mount Sumeru, the greatest mountain in this world and the next. And even though those sufferings, prana priya, they're coming from persons who are beloved. who are like our life, who are our relatives. That prem, he says, kleshas, even though all this klesha, this suffering is there, tadapya tati bala sahasa vichitya. This prema, premaiva tanhaririban iva pushtameva. It vichitya, it very quickly defeats all this opposition, and rather it becomes stronger and stronger. Premaiva tanharir, the word harir here means like a lion who's becomes more encouraged when elephants go to oppose him. The lion doesn't become afraid. The lion becomes more nourished and so, I have to fight now. And therefore Thakur Bhakti Vinod, he describes in his Saranagati about these troubles, even for the Sadhik devotees. He says, Tomada sevaya dukkha hoya jato seoto parama sukha seva sukha dukkha parama sampada nashaya vidya dukkha. He says that Tomada sevaya, O Krishna, in your service, dukkha hoya jata, whatever suffering comes, sayato paramasuk, that's my greatest happiness. Whatever suffering comes in my service to Gurudev, that's my greatest happiness. How is that great happiness? Now I'm proving my love. There may be some doubt. He just loves me because we distribute prasadam after class. Anupayani likes Krishna Kun just because she sends prasadam over to her. And that's the only reason she actually likes her. That thought may come. But then when there's some difficulty, and we have every reason to give up our service and to go away and do something else, but no, we don't give that up. And those difficulties give us happiness, because now I can prove my love for Gurudev. I can prove my love for Krishna and the devotees. And therefore, seva sukha dukha, that unhappiness that I get in my service, that's my greatest happiness. And nashaya avidya dukha, whatever happiness or unhappiness I get in my service, seva sukha dukha, parama sampada, that's my great riches. It's my riches. When something comes, I don't complain about the COVID virus. I don't complain about this or that. These are my great sampada, my great opulence, my great riches. This is an opportunity now for me to prove my love to Krishna and to Guru. So at this point, dear devotees, we'd like to go to a book, this Dibyon Mada, which has been translated as the divine frenzy, the divine madness. And it begins in the forest of Vrindavan, and there's Subal and Sudama, and all the different cowherd boys are there, and Subal begins speaking to them. They're all crying in separation from Krishna. They return to Vrindavan with Nanda Maharaj. And this is after the pastime of the gifts. Krishna's offering these gifts. And Subal, he's sitting with the boys, and they're all crying and feeling so much separation from Krishna. And at that time, Subal tells him, said, last night I had a dream, and Krishna came to me. And he put his hands over my eyes, and he softly whispered in my ears. He said, "Who am I?" And I touched his hands. And I could feel in my dream those soft and sweet hands. And I said, "You're my dear Krishna and none others." And then Krishna came before me and very warmly embraced me. And he asked me, "How are all of you, all my friends, doing in Vrindavan during my absence? How are you all surviving?" And at that moment, Subal said, "My dream broke. And I didn't see Krishna anymore." But the dream was so real. I thought that it was real. And so I decided when I woke up, I had to come to see you, to ask you, did that really happen? When Sudam and the other boys heard this dream of Subal, they all began to cry. And Sudam said, "You are very dear. Come close. We want to touch you now." because you were embraced by Krishna in the dream. So if we touch you, then we'll have some touch of Krishna. And Sridama, the older brother of Srimati Radharani, he told Subal, why did Krishna leave? It's because we didn't properly respect him. We took our own food and we gave him our remnants, and we spoke very harshly to him. Sometimes we challenged him to fight. Sometimes we chastised him. It wasn't appropriate. It was appropriate, and it brought great love and happiness to Krishna. But in their separation, they're feeling like this, they're lamenting. Meanwhile, in another place in the forest of Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani was there. And Vishaka was there along with Lalita and the other gopis, and seeing the Divyonmada, or the divine madness of Srimati Radharani, and wanting to somehow keep Radharani alive. Vishaka said, Radhe, I know Krishna must be hiding somewhere. So many times he would hide from us in Vrindavan, in the forest. Come, let's go and search for him. And Radharani, she said, yes, it must be true. He's a very tricky fellow. Rupa Goswami describes the same thing in Lalita Madhav after Krishna left Vrindavan, how the gopis kept Radharani alive by telling him that maybe Krishna's just hiding. He must be just hiding somewhere here in the forest of Vrindavan. Let's go searching for him. And Radharani said, yes, you must be right. And Radharani goes running. And the Manjaris were following and said, hey, Radhe, don't go so fast. There's so many thorns on the path. And your body now has become very weak. You're shaking. You're very faint. If you walk, there's so many thorns. There's so many poisonous snakes and they bite you. Moreover, because of your tears, the ground has become wet and slippery. You may fall. Don't go so fast. Put your arms in ours and walk and look as you're walking. And Radharani said, what do I care for the thorns? When love for Krishna rose in my heart, I thought, what is it that I won't do for his sake? I'll walk any thorn-infested path. There may be snakes there. I don't care. How could I stay at home when I heard his flute calling for me? So I began to practice at night when no one was there. I poured water on the ground in my courtyard to learn how to walk on slippery ground. And I put many thorns there in my courtyard. And I practiced walking on them with bare feet to learn how to walk on the thorns. And then I studied from different snake charmers to learn mantras to protect myself against the bites of snakes. I did all these things for Krishna. And Radharani said, but where is Krishna? Where is Krishna gone? This forest, which was once so beautiful, full of flowers and bees and the sound of the cuckoos and the parrots, now all the flowers have gone and all the plants are withering and dying, and their dry leaves are falling to the ground. And the bumblebees, where are they? Where is the sound of the cuckoos singing? Now the parrots and the birds are simply sitting stunned and they're all crying. And then Srimati Radharani began to speak to the trees. Hey Tama, hey Sal, hey Hinta, Dhaba, Sinsapa. Oh trees, tell me, where has Krishna gone? Oh Malati, oh Madhavi, all different flowers. Have you seen my beloved? These dewdrops on your leaves, are these perhaps tears of joy because you've met him? This is Radharani's vilap, or her Divyonmada, her mad speaking in separation from Krishna. She's speaking to the flowers. Are you crying in separation from Krishna when she sees the dewdrops on her? The gopis, and they see this, they begin to speak amongst themselves. Radharani has become mad. She's speaking to the trees and creepers as though they were animate beings. Is this a reward of love of Krishna? And Radharani, going through that forest, she would see a tree. Oh, this is the tree where we met Krishna. This is the place where he was playing his flute. He used to sit here. And sometimes he would comb my hair and braid my hair here. Where is Krishna? Now I've lost him. But even though I've lost him, somehow I can't die. This is a Dibyonmada. And then suddenly, Radharani says, hey, do you hear that sound? It's the sound of Krishna's flute. Krishna's playing his flute. Come, let's go. Krishna's calling for us. We have to go there quickly. And the gopis, they look at each other. In her madness, Srimati Radharani is hearing. She's mistaking the sound of the wind moving through the bamboo groves to be the sound of Krishna's flute. And then Radharani stops and she looks in the sky at the clouds. And she says, hey, kaha saki ki kari upai, Krishna bhuta bahalaka mera neta chataka. My dear friend, what should I do? There's Krishna. Krishna who's like a chataka bird. My eyes, he said, are like a chataka bird. And Krishna there, he's come. And Krishna's looking at the black cloud. Krishna's there. He's waiting for us. Come. We have to greet him nicely. Let's put out some pots of water. Let's put out some banana trees. We should call Krishna. He says, hey, Krishna, come. But the cloud stays there. And Radharani speaking to the cloud, she says, my beloved, why are you just standing there? Why don't you come? There was a time when if you didn't see me even for a moment, you would feel so much separation. But now you're being indifferent to me? The cloud doesn't say anything. It's a cloud. And Radharani says, are you angry with me? Did I do something wrong? And then the cloud begins to move away in the wind. And Radharani begins to cry, oh, Sakis, Krishna's leaving. He doesn't listen to me. What can I do? How can I stay alive? Kaha saki ki korupai, Krishna bhuta balahaka, Krishna mora nita chataka. She said, what can I do? My Krishna is like a cloud. My eyes are like chatak birds, and they're suffering in separation from Krishna. Now, the maidservants, the gopis, they told Radharani, no, it was just a cloud. Don't cry, you're becoming mad. Krishna wasn't there. And when Radharani hears the words of the gopis, then Radharani falls to the ground unconscious. And the gopis say, what can we do now? Will Radharani live? And then Vishaka, she says, I know the medicine. Radha eka bara noyana mela vinodini deka Krishna gunamani. They began to sing to Krishna, to Radharani. Hey Radhe, just look, open your eyes for a moment. Here's Krishna. Krishna's come. And the gopis, they put a picture of Krishna in front of Radharani. And Radharani opens her eyes. Oh, Krishna's here. Krishna's here. And she reaches out to touch him. And she sees, oh, It's only a picture. Krishna's not here. And then Radharani falls to the ground unconscious again. And the gopis realize now it's become very, very serious. We don't know, is Radharani going to live or not? At that time, Chandravali came there. Chandravali, Rupa Goswami says in Lita Madhav, is the cousin of Radharani. And she speaks to Radharani. Hey Radhe, don't worry. Don't worry. We'll figure out some way to bring Krishna here again. And Radharani then she says, I'll become a yogini, a sannyasini. I'll go and I'll beg alms everywhere until I find him. And Chandravali says, don't speak like this. You're a princess. Why should you do this? Why should you do austerities and become like a sannyasini? Don't worry. I'll go to Mathura. I'll bring Krishna. It's not so far to Mathura. It's not such a big walk. Chandravali says, I'll go there. Radharani began to cry, my friend, you go. Don't delay. And then Chandravali left, and she came back after a moment again. And Radharani said, Chandravali, why did you come back? And Chandravali then she told her, do you remember sometime back that Krishna became so infatuated with you, he wanted to see you and you were angry, you were exhibiting your sulkiness known as man, and you wouldn't let him into the kunj. And then we forced Krishna to sign a document that if we allow him into the kunj, then he'll become your slave for life. Do you remember that document? Radharani said, yes, I remember that. Chandravali says, I want that. Why do you want that? Radha asks. And Chandravali says, I'm going to take it with me. And if gentle words fail to persuade Krishna to return, then I'm going to show that document to the residents of Mathura, and I'm going to tell them that he's a thief. He doesn't belong to you. He belongs to Radharani. He signed this document. He's a slave of Radharani. So you should bind him up in chains as a runaway slave and bring him here. And if someone says, how can you bind up our king? I'll tell them, no, your king is not a king. He's a runaway slave of our queen. So they gave that document to Chandravali. And then Radharani whispered to Chandravali, she said, Chandravali, you go to Mathura, you find Krishna, but don't bind him up with chains. Don't speak rough words to him. If you chastise him, then his heart will break. I can't tolerate that. Chandravali, in separation now, it's a funny thing that Chandravali and Radharani's moods have become reversed. And Chandravali is becoming very sweet and gentle. And Chandravali has become harsh. And Radharani has become gentle, which is usually just the opposite. And Chandravali says, what? Do you want me to fall down at his feet and offer prayers and say, oh, you're such a big... Radharani said, no, don't do that either. Don't chastise him, but also don't lose your dignity. You just tell him about our situation. And Chandravali says, very well, I'll do that. And so she goes to Mathura, and there in Mathura, she finds there were a group of ladies going to the Jamuna to take pitchers of water, and they were singing the glories of Krishna. That we don't have to worry going to get water from the Jamuna. If some man comes and wants to stare at our beautiful faces or wants to try to touch us, we don't worry because we have the Lord of Mathura, Krishna's here. And those ladies, while they're singing, suddenly they saw this very beautiful Chandravali walking towards them. And the ladies said, hey, look at her. They kind of elbowed her friends. She's so beautiful. Is it Urvasi maybe, or some heavenly Apsara coming from the heavenly planets? They approached Chandravali. They said, "Good woman, who are you? You look like a princess or a queen, like a Russian princess." And Chandravali said, "No, I'm not a princess. I'm the servant of a princess. And my princess, her beauty exceeds any other woman. But my princess is suffering from a disease, from a sickness. And so I've come here to search out a cure for that sickness." And that another woman said, "Where do you hope to find the cure in this town?" And Chandravali says, "The cure is with your king, Mathura, Krishna." And they said, "He's not a physician, he's not a doctor." And Chandravali said, "If he's not a doctor, we heard how he cured Kubja of her back problem. How is it he's not a doctor?" And he said, "Yeah, that's true. He did." He said, "How did you hear about this? You're an outside person, you're just coming here." He says, No, we heard many different things about your Mathura. How can I meet with him?" And they said, "Well, there's so many guards and gates and things, but you do this. You go to the back gate, and you'll find there are many maidservants coming and going. Mix with them, and you can enter into that palace." And Chandravali does that, and she finds there in a big temple, in a big courtroom, Krishna sitting by himself on a throne. And Chandravali thought to herself, "This is my chance now. I'll stand behind a column, and I want to test Krishna. Well, let me see if he still remembers him." So she stood behind that column, and in a very sweet voice, she called out the name, "Radha, Radha." And Krishna, sitting there on the throne, becomes startled, and he says, What is this I hear? Here in Mathura, someone is saying the sweet, beautiful name of my beloved Radha. Krishna began to cry. And he says, "They're hearing this name gives me so much happiness now. It reminds me of Vrindavan. Oh, where is Radha? Where is Nanda, my father? Where is my mother, Yashoda? Where are my friends? How cruel I am to have forgotten all of them. I left them just because I had some desire to become a king." Curses are on me. And Chandravali, hearing Krishna's words, she thought, very good. Now I understand. He's not forgotten Radharani. And Chandravali, then she came out from behind that column. And Krishna saying her, he said, "My dear woman, you look very sad." He didn't recognize Chandravali. And he said, "What is your name? Where is your home? Why have you come here?" And Chandravali looked a little confused. She said, "I don't know. I used to know my name, but now I've forgotten it." Krishna said, "That's strange. Where are you from?" And Chandravali thought for a moment. She said, "I also used to know that, but I seem to also have forgotten that. I seem to have forgotten everything." And Krishna said, "That's a strange thing. You've forgotten everything coming here?" And Chandravali says, "Yes, it's true. There seems to be some kind of powerful magic about this place, that when someone comes here, they forget all about their former self and who they are and where they came from." And she looked at Krishna. And Krishna glanced back at her. "What are you saying?" He said, "Anyway, what are you saying, these two syllables, Radha? How did you know about Krishna, about Radha?" Chandravali said, "You should know. We're all worshippers of Radha." Krishna said, "My good woman, I'm so pleased with you to say these two words. I want to give you a reward. What can I give to you?" And Chandravali says, "What kind of gifts do you want to offer me?" thinking before you tried to offer us some presents and things. And Krishna said, hey, I'm a big man here. I can give you so much gold and silver and jewels. Chandravali shook her head. We know you tried that before. She said, the people where I come from, they don't value gold and silver. The place where I come from, they're Kurukshetra trees who give you anything just for asking it. I've come here to ask you for something else. Krishna said, what is it? Chandravali said, our princess. She purchased a very precious jewel, and she was wearing it on her breast and valuing it more than her life. But some man from Kamsa's court came one day and robbed her from it, and now our princess has become almost mad with grief. And so she sent me here to you to get some justice, to bring that thief, to give him some punishment. Krishna said, hey, if that thief is here, then I'll definitely, you'll get justice. Chandravali said, we don't know actually where that thief is, but once, previously he was caught. And he signed a legal document, a legal tract. I have that. And I think he must be here somewhere. If I can find him, will you give me some help? And Krishna said, hey, beautiful lady, whatever is needed to do, I'll do. I'll give you whatever. Chandravali said, well, what if he doesn't agree to give the property? Then Krishna said, well, then he'll be sent to prison. And Chandravali said, well, don't mind me asking, but what if he belongs to the royal family? And Krishna said, you don't mind. Even if it's me, myself, the law of the country must be executed. And Chandravali said, okay, that's good. I marked that. Let's remember your comments. Okay. But one other question. While I was standing behind that column, I saw that you started crying when I mentioned this name, Radha. Can I ask you, why were you crying? And Krishna said, that's a funny question. You know, your face looks very familiar. Do I know you? And Chandravali said, why would you know me? Maybe some person, maybe Kubja, put some magic dust in your eyes or something. How could you know me? And by the way, I have this document. Can you tell me whose signature this is here on the paper here? And Krishna looks there. And he says, it's Chandravali. Oh, Chandravali. Oh, how is my father, Nanda? Is he okay? How is my mother? Is she able to live without me? It used to be if she missed me for a moment, and she would go wandering in the forest searching for me. How are my friends, the boys? They used to hold me to their chest. And they used to offer me sweet fruits. And Chandravali, how are the gopis? Do they still miss me? Tell me, how is Radharani? And Chandravali said, why are you speaking all these things? You don't mean this. You're just saying this because I came here and then you're remembering them. But you don't remember them. What are you trying to impress me? He says, what do you care? If you really cared, then you would return to Vrindavan with me. That Vrindavan forest, it's like been struck by a terrible fire. And even the birds and beasts who are there, they're all struck dumb with sorrow. You don't really care. And Krishna said, don't speak like this to me. Within 1 or 2 days, I'm going to go there. Chandravali says, okay, tell me exactly when. I have a calendar here. Tell me exactly when you're going to come back. And Krishna said, tomorrow, definitely. Chandravali said, Previously, you told us ayasya when you left. You promised you were going to return. How can we rely on your promise? Huh? Krishna said, no, I'm going to return. Huh? Chandravali said, you have no heart. You can't feel. Huh? I don't think you have a heart. Huh? You look very beautiful with this dark blue color, but there's no sign of grief in you. You're dark. Now, if your dark color changed to the fair color like Radharani, then we might believe you that you're actually going to return. And Krishna said, don't doubt me. I'm going to return. And you'll see that golden color. So that golden color is the color of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is a purport of the story. As we said in our last session toward the end, that the purpose of this separation, one of the purposes is to evoke Gaura Lila. So I'm going to stop here. We've gone very late. I'm sorry. I want to thank all the devotees, Brajabanita, Natalia, and Sadhu Marg Prabhu. If anybody has any quick comments, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, thank you. Hare Krishna. Sadhu Marg Prabhu said, thank you very much for the heartfelt Krishna Katha. What is the difference between the feelings of separation experienced by the residents of Dwarka and the residents of Vrindavan in absence of Krishna? The intensity is much, much greater in Vrindavan because their love is much, much greater. We'll speak something more about Krishna's residence in Dwarka and what happened there in a future session. I want to stop here. Does anybody here have a reflection just for 1 minute or something? Anapayani?
Thank you so much for this wonderful story, and that the purpose that you told, that the purpose of the separation to evoke Gaura Lila. It's so beautiful. Such a nice statement. And also, it's such a relevant thing that although gopis and residents of Vrindavan, they have the highest love, but still for us even it's relevant that the obstacles for them it just increases their love, and it just proves their love to others, and it's relevant for us because in our situation, although maybe I don't have any love, or it's really like a shadow or a drop or something, it's the obstacles are a chance for me to prove my love to my spiritual master.
Yes. Very nice comment. Thank you. Anybody else here who'd like to offer a reflection? Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop here. And our next session will be on Wednesday, and we'll speak something more about these topics. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari.